So, again, my name is Kristen Larson. I'm going to be today's moderator for the webcast. Our presenter today is Dr. Chen-Young Lee. He is a Senior Research Associate here at the Center for Urban Transportation Research. His primary area of specialization is in the field of transportation safety and transportation planning, which includes behavioral safety, experiment design, survey analysis, statistical analysis, travel behavior analysis, and intelligent transportation systems. Dr. Lee is a member of the TRB Motorcycle Safety Committee and has led and completed more than 20 externally funded research projects as principal investigator. During the last 7 years, he has been actively involved in various transportation safety research projects related to motorcycle safety and motorcyclist behavior, including motorcyclist anti-speeding campaign and evaluation, the Constant Duty campaign and evaluation, observational survey of motorcyclist behaviors, motorcycle program evaluation and data collection, comprehensive motorcycle safety program support. And with that, I will go ahead and turn things over to Chen-Young.
Thank you. Let's go back to the first slide. Okay, so today's presentation is going to be the small discussion about how we want to make a towards zero death operation, and then for doing that, who needs to do the heavy lifting. And mainly the presentation is going to talk about the motorcycle crash trend in Florida. So this is a quote from the recent document from NHTSA. The motor vehicle is the primary means of transportation, and as everybody can agree, this provides like unprecedented degree of the freedom for the people. The problem that we have is, like, as this motor vehicle serve the primary means of the primary means to provide mobility for the people, but as a consequence, we'll see there's some negative impact of this this negative impact of having this high level of mobility. So I'm sure that many people in this session recall in 2009 there was a H1N1 pandemic issue that, and at the time that WHO was making a pretty strong they're taking a pretty strong initiative about this, and also I recall that President Obama was also making a special announcement for this H1N1 breaking out in 2009. But in fact, if you look at some of the numbers that people who actually died out of this H1N1 related incident, that's about, like, as you can see, it's about 3,000 to 6,000 people. But if you look at the people who die out of the traffic crash in 1 year in the United States is 32,000, so which is almost 10 times or 9 times higher than this number. But I mean, if in 2009 when there was H1N1 breakout and everyone was so freaked out and everyone was talking about, and the media was talking about it. However, in the transportation crashes, like, people are there is some kind of norm that people recognize this is like inevitable outcome of having a higher level of mobility. However, this is not true, and also there should be effort to reduce the number of crashes. So, in the new initiative and new effort to reduce the number of crashes in the United States, there is a new paradigm. It's called the Toward Zero Death. It's called the National State Strategy on Highway Safety. And this is an effort to how we can making an effort to create opportunity and changing the American culture as it related to highway safety. And as you can see, this is a big effort to including EMS, engineering, and enforcement, education, and policy, public health, and all different sectors that got involved in the transportation. They can work together to reduce trying to come up with a better outcome or resolution for these traffic crashes. So this is a number that you can see in the, it's called toward the zero deaths. And this is the official data from the Florida Department of Highway Safety Motor Vehicles. And as you can see in, let me see if I can get the pen. In 2000, we have 280,000 crashes, and as a result, we have 2,255 motor vehicle fatalities. Sorry, like 2,430 motor vehicle fatalities, and 2,255 fatal crashes. So this is not a by no means this is not an insignificant number. This is a pretty significant, and then state and everybody is trying to make an effort to improve this number. If you look at the trend of motor vehicle crashing in Florida, this is a graph that indexed to the 2003 number. So if you consider 2003 is a 1, that as you can see the trend in here, the red line represents the fatalities in the motor vehicle. So it went up a little bit, but overall it came down nicely for the past 10 years with a slight increase, very slight increase between 2011 and 2012. I mean, we don't have 2013 data yet because official data released from the DHSMB can take more than several months after the end of the year. So right now, the official data that we have from the DHSMB is up to 2012. But you can see that although for the past 10 years, the number of traffic crash wasn't reduced that much. Like in fact, it went up quite between the 2011 and 12. However, that something that is pretty encouraging is that we were able to reduce the number of fatalities out of this number of crashes. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation today, that mainly we are going to talk about motorcycle crashes. So something that interesting about the motorcycle crashes is a motorcycle is only the 3% of by the registration is only 3% of motor vehicles. So which means that when you go out and you see the 100 vehicles passing by, on average you are expecting to see 3 vehicles out of the 100 vehicles. However, that if you look at the crashed vehicles, within the crashed vehicles, representation of motorcycle is pretty higher. It is not 3%. It is coming in the later part of the presentation, but it's much more than the 3%. So according to the NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, in 2011, 4,612 motorcyclists were killed in the motor vehicle crash in the United States. And then here is the same thing. In the national standard, the motorcycle made up 3% of all registered vehicles in the United States. In the Florida case, it's a little higher than 3%. We have a better weather. We can ride 24/7. So this is one of the better states to ride a motorcycle. So we have about 3.7% of registered vehicle is a motorcycle. However, and then also looking at the BMT, and based on this document, it said only the 0.6% of all vehicle miles traveled, which means like when you ride a motorcycle, most riders, they can ride a motorcycle for maybe like 6,000 miles per year or 10,000 miles per year. That's a pretty like good average. Versus like when someone drive a car, they drive much more than 10,000 easily, especially in Florida. Everything is so far away. So usually like people drive a car more than 10,000 miles. So which means that if you are looking at the BMT as a measure, that motorcycle actually has a much smaller representation in terms of actual use. So by the registration is only 3%, and then we can say by the BMT is much smaller than car, much smaller, even smaller proportion. And more the detailed information can be downloaded in this link. So motorcyclists killed in Florida. You can see in the 2012 that we have 457 people died on a motorcycle. And out of the 457 people, and 425 was a motorcycle operator, and 32 were passengers. So as you can see, the trend, it went up pretty high. Like ever in 2000, that we have I know some people may know or may not know. Is year 2000, Florida became a state that repealed the universal helmet law. So since after 2000, that people who are riding a motorcycle in Florida, if they are older than 21 and carries a $10,000 insurance, that they can ride a motorcycle without helmet. And then we will see increase of the motorcycle fatalities for like almost like 7 years in a row. And one thing that positive that we one thing that let me back up. Like another major change in the motorcycle in Florida is in 2008, that Florida became one of the first states that adopted the mandatory training, which means that if anybody looking for the motorcycle endorsement as a new rider, and they would have to go to the 2 days mandatory training. In the Florida adopted the program called the BRC, Basic Rider Course, from MSF, Motorcycle Safety Foundation. And the program consists of the 2 days of the training inside of classroom and also on a range. So, and then also the the state of Florida launched this Florida Motorcycle Safety Coalition, and then which becomes a major entity to make ample effort to address the motorcycle safety. And we have observed the significant reduction of the motorcycle fatalities in the between the 2007 to the 2010, and it is true that there was some decline trend in other states too, just because there's an economic downturn, and also we expect less people are riding motorcycle. But let me just say this: like Florida is the only state among the like 50 states in the United States was able to achieve the 4 years of consecutive reduction in fatality. There are other states was able to do it in 1 year, but or maybe 2 years, but there was no other state was able to do it in 4 years. So there was a very positive outcome of the effort. But however, that we start to see the number that going up again in 2011 and 12. So which concerns state and other people that involved in safety, general vehicle safety. And we were trying to figure out what should be the good countermeasures, or what should be the effort to be, what kind of focused effort we should make to make it turn around and then keep going down. So this is like indexed injury and fatality and crashes, and in 2001 to the 2012. And somebody may ask question and say, oh, what about the motorcycle registration? What about the motorcycle registration? So, which is true, the number of the registered motorcycle went up about like 60% between the 2001 and 2012. So there was an increase of the motorcycle registration, which actually contributed a lot to the increase of this motorcycle crashes and fatalities and injuries. However, they assume that that's pretty naive approach in terms of like sort of take for granted for like linear increase. Like if you have 2 crashes out of the 10 motorcycle, now you'll be okay to have 4 crashes for 20 motorcycle. So here the contributing factor. One of the major contributing factor should be the increase of motorcycle registration, but we also don't just take a passive attitude, say, okay, that's something that we expect to see. So we are trying to make an effort to how we can reduce the motorcycle crashes and fatalities. The interesting thing is this is just a recap of motorcycle fatalities and traffic fatalities. That you can see that there's a general trend coming down for traffic fatalities, versus motorcycle fatality went up seriously for the first several years, and then it came down, and now it's went up. So there's a little more fluctuation than traffic fatalities, but there is a trend that we can observe for the motorcycle crashes. Okay, now this is the percent of motorcycle fatalities and crashes in all traffic crashes. In this particular example, that we only use the operator only, just because I didn't have access to the passenger data for the prior to the year 2005. So to make a entire year in the same angle, the same category, I have to just use the motorcycle operator only. But if you look at the operator only, that you can see here that the year that we have pretty high portion of motorcycle fatality in traffic crash, in entire traffic crash fatalities was 17.1 to 17.8%. But now the last 2 years, at almost 19%. So which means by registration, motorcycle only represent 3.7% of motor vehicles in Florida, and by the VMT, probably they will represent much lower portion of the VMT, means the vehicle mile traveled. So by the VMT, motorcycle will be even lower proportion of motor vehicles. However, the fatalities that I don't want to say generate, but the fatalities on motorcycles are 18.8% of entire motor vehicle fatalities. So you can see that this is a pretty significant issue. So the reason that I came with the title that who need to do the heavy lifting is by looking at the registration and motorcycle, most people cannot recognize motorcycle easily. So you may not feel that like motorcycles are everywhere. You may not understand the motorcycle issue is a very important issue. But this 18.8%, that the high proportion in the fatality can make that motorcycle issues should be the significant issue that the concern of the state, and we should make an effort to address it. And the other thing is, for the fatality portion, like if you look at the fatality portion, there is about on average about 5%, which means that if you have motorcycle crash, 5% of the motorcycle crash will be involved at least one fatalities. And versus if you have the car crashes, like motor vehicle crash, on average is about 1%. So you will see the motorcycle crash in data that in the statistics showed the higher odds of getting involved at least one fatalities. So now we are talking about then who's at fault. Like I mean, this is one of the things that we like to talk about is like once we have the motorcycle crashes, that we'll say, hey, it's like who wants to do the who is responsible for this motorcycle crashes, and like motorcycle riders are particularly vulnerable. We already talked about it. Like it's a much higher portion of fatal crashes but like they are seen by the driver as they are taking a great risk than other road users, and then there's a public perception that the motorcycle riders are reckless and more likely to ride at a higher speed. And on the other hand, if you talk to the motorcyclists, they will say drivers need to be educated, and they should have a greater awareness of the motorcycle on the road. So this kind of like it becomes a blaming game. Like everybody wants to blame each other. Instead of they are taking responsibility for their fault, they are saying, oh, just because you do the stupid thing, that can cause higher odds of crashes. So motorcycle crash can be divided into the 3 categories. First is the single vehicle crashes, which means like you as a motorcyclist, you involved in a crash without other vehicles. So when you get the single vehicle motorcycle crashes, that's like your fault. You as a motorcycle, I mean, you can blame the tree or you can blame the roadway geometry, but most of the time it was you, only the person that can be blamed. So that's about the 34% of the crashes. If you look at the entire motorcycle crash, there's like 100 motorcycle crashes. We're talking about 34 out of 100 crashes on average. That's a single vehicle motorcycle crashes. So before we are getting to the multi-vehicle crashes, I want to emphasize that in the motorcycle that involve in a single vehicle crashes is 34% of their entire crashes, versus the single vehicle crashes for the passenger car is only 13 to 15%. So right there, the motorcyclists are responsible that they actually involve in a higher, the motorcycle represent higher proportion of the single vehicle crashes compared to the passenger car. And so there, like, we will need to see that motorcyclists need to understand this, that they are involved in a higher proportion of the single vehicle crashes. I mean, it may be due to like they're taking a more risk, or they're I mean, riding a motorcycle is a pretty. I mean, someone said riding a motorcycle is a full-time job, so it requires more physical attention and physical capacity to operate the vehicles. So as a consequences, like sometimes if you don't concentrate, if you are not skillful enough to operate a motorcycle, you can involve in a motorcycle crashes by yourself without having any interaction with other vehicles. Okay, for the multi-vehicle crashes, so that if you take out the 34% of this multi-vehicle crashes, let me change the fan. So now the remaining will be 66%, right? So among the 66% of the crashes, that it comes to 26% is the motorcycles at fault, and other vehicles at fault is 40%. So if you do the math, so 26 divided by the 66, that becomes about 40%. And 40% divided by 66, that's about the 60%. So which means when the motorcycle get involved in a multi-vehicle crash, based on the data, it shows that motor vehicles, like other drivers, as they are at more fault. So which means that you as a car driver, you can blame the motorcyclist for the all fault. However, the statistics show that when you get involved in a motor vehicles, or when you get involved in a crash with a motorcycle, there's a higher chance or higher odd that motor vehicle driver, not the motorcyclist, at fault. However, that I don't want the people to, I mean, like this has been an issue that when I presented this idea that like I want the motorcyclists to look at this. I mean, basically, what I intended to do is I want the motorcyclists to understand this portion. And I want the drivers to understand this portion. However, that when I presented this idea, usually the motorcyclists will look at this portion, just saying, I told you that, see, the motor vehicles are more at fault, and then they neglected these numbers. Versus, when drivers see this portion, they will only look at this portion and say, you guys are twice higher than the passenger car. But what I'm saying is, there are two sides of the fault. Like we can blame each other forever, but this shows that each party, the motorcyclists and motor vehicle drivers, they all need to understand that everybody takes responsibility for these crashes. And interestingly enough, the trend of this three proportion is very consistent over the 10 years. Like you see, this is like a portion of motorcycle and motor vehicle crash at the motor vehicle at fault, and then this is a portion of motorcycle motor vehicle crash at the motor vehicle at fault, which is multi-vehicle, and then this is the portion of single vehicle motorcycle crashes. And this is a chart that shows that the different county is responsible for different proportion of motorcycle crash in the United States. In Florida. And as you can see here, Miami-Dade, the size of this circle that shows total motorcycle fatalities between the 2010 to 2012. And then, as you can see, Miami-Dade, Broward County, and Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, and Pasco, and Orange, and Volusia, and Duval. These are the and Palm Beach. These are the like counties that has a significantly higher proportion of motorcycle crashes. Also, the same thing for the this is also same thing for the injuries. And this shows like a percentage of fatal crashes to the motorcycle crashes. So something is kind of interesting is like it's like this is like 20% of their motorcycle crashes are fatal crashes. So there are the counties that has like very limited number of motorcycle crashes. So they may have 1 or 2 cases over the year, or maybe 10 to 20 cases over the year. However, the 10 to 20 involve 1 fatal or 2 fatal. So since they have a very small denominator, so they end up having higher proportion. But something that kind of interesting to not check it in here, that the Miami-Dade has a like higher proportion, and Hillsborough is also higher proportion of the fatal crashes. However, when you look at it, like Miami has a relatively lower proportion of the fatal crashes. In terms of number, it's a high, but in terms of proportion, the Miami is lower. And for versus Lee County, that the one has a higher proportion of fatal crashes, and by the entire number, each circle here, like a circle represents the total number of the size of the circle represents the total motorcycle crashes. So you can see this is a big circle, means like by the number they are high. However, in terms of fatal concentration, that like Lee County is higher than the Hillsborough counties. I explained that for the small counties just because they have an issue of having too small number of cases, so that it became significant. But so that we may neglect those counties at this moment. However, that this Polk and the Lee County will be the interesting to watch. And also, when we talk about motorcycle crashes, it's not the same motorcycles. Like motorcycles divide into the different categories. There are cruisers, which is like a Harley Davidson type of motorcycle most of the time, and sports bike, and off-road bike, scooters, standard, touring, and like a Goldwing. So it is different portion of the motorcycles in the fatal crash data. But interesting point is that for the sports bikers, and actually, if you go out and observe the 100 motorcycle and the on street, you will see about 20%. So what I'm saying is the 20% out of the 100 motorcycles that pass by you, that on average 20 of 100 will be the sports bike, and versus like a cruiser will be around like 45. I mean, so they are matching. For the touring, it will be much higher than this number. They were like, if you observe the motorcycle in the traffic, they are going to be about around 10%. So by looking at this, that you can tell the sports bikers are overrepresented in crash data, especially in the fatal motorcycle crash data, and touring bikes are less represented in the crash data. And they are also different in terms of age. They each, like the cruiser bikers, on average, their age of the people who are involved in a fatal motorcycle crash is about 50. Versus sports bike is 30, and then touring is about the 50. So so there are different age for different bike type. And in terms of the age group, that we have a high proportion of young bikers that involve in a crash, and also we have more people, like there are like more people that involve in a crash which is over 45 too. So there is one hump, and then there is a second hump. Okay, so let's talk about what we can do. So like, what's the countermeasures that work for the motorcycles? So in the left picture, this one, that the reason I use this picture is when you ride a motorcycle, like they would say, oh, it's you and you, motorcycle, and Mother Nature. So basically, it talks about our freedom, like you, yourself, and nothing else, and you ride a motorcycle. That becomes a problem when you get involved in a crash, which means like you will be hitting on a pavement, or you will have any extra protection to you will not have any extra protection to protect yourself, other than you wear helmet and your personal PPE, the PPEs. So I mean, if you buy a vehicle, that vehicle has a 5-star rating, and like sometimes people look at this star, and this also becomes a great tool for marketing of car company. They will say, oh, this minivan has a 5-star on the side impact crash on the front and rear, the rear and front. However, that as long as I know, there's no safety rating for motorcycles, which means that in a way that people recognize when someone get involved in a motorcycle crash is more of the motorcyclist to there's nothing else than the motorcyclist to react to the crashes. So in my opinion, the best countermeasures that can prevent the motorcycle crash and injuries are two things. First one is like you should protect yourself. You need to have the DOT compliant helmet. I know there are people that against the universal helmet law, but like I want to make it clear that what I'm saying here is like I'm not going to emphasize that whether we need the universal helmet or not. That's not what I'm going to discuss. But what I'm saying is helmet is the one of few. One of few tools you can use as a motorcyclist to protect yourself. When you get involved in a crash, that you have nothing but you, motorcycle. That's it. So if you don't have PPE, there's nothing else like protect you. So but sometimes people are making arguments saying, oh yeah, I mean it's better. I mean it's like helmet is only going to reduce your level of injury, but it's better to it's better to prevent the motorcycle in advance. So if we educate more, or if you become skillful motorcyclist, you may be able to avoid a motorcycle crash, which is true. That's right. I mean, that's a great thing. I'm going to talk about that education too. However, if that is true, that you don't need to buy a car insurance. Like you just need to train yourself, become a better driver. Then you completely have a firm belief, more training, that I will not get involved in any crash, so I don't need to have insurance. So what I'm saying is like, yes, like it is important to prevent injuries or crashes in advance. However, you also need to be ready, or you want to be prepared yourself, at least by wearing a helmet. So that's what I'm going to say here. So let's talk about the education. Florida became a mandatory training state in 2008, and which is very good thing. But it's like there was a time that people get licensed or endorsed without a training. If you refer to 2008, the people can get licensed and endorsed without training in Florida. So we ask people using a survey that whether they get trained when they get endorsed, and also they actually get trained after the endorsement. So there are if you do the cross tabulation, that it will show you 4 different components. The yes means like, oh, somebody got trained during the endorsement, and then somebody actually trained after the endorsement. So this is like people who are very into the safety maybe. And there are people, there was like people who got endorsed like a long time ago, grandfathered in. There was no formal training. Afterward, they got actually figure out, oh, they'll be, why not? Like, so they actually go and train. So that's yes. Versus like, there's a group that, oh, I did get the train when I obtained my motorcycle endorsement. However, that I never want to go back to the additional training, which is not necessary, which is not required by law. And this group can be a problem. And saying, oh, I got a motorcycle license. There was a time that you could get a motorcycle license, just go to the DMV, pay extra money, and you really don't need to get trained or tested. So there are a good chunk of people who ride a motorcycle, and they will say, oh, I never got trained. I never had official training. And then, like, I never went back to training after the endorsement. So in terms of percentage of the, based on our survey data, it's about 14% of people actually went to the training after they got the first training during the endorsement, and then they actually went back to the second training. And so the total becomes 21% of people that actually received the training after the endorsement. And this, like, there are 66% of people actually got trained when they get endorsement. So this troublesome, or let me just say, like, this is like people who never got trained officially or received the formal training is about 27%. So 27% of riders out there in Florida, based on this survey, it shows they never received any formal training. So out of 10 motorcycles in Florida, you will see that here if you have 10 motorcycles in Florida, that about 25% of motorcycle riders out there on the street, they don't have motorcycle endorsement. So they are riding without a proper endorsement. And then there are another 27% adding to that has no formal training. So it will be a surprise if somebody has no formal training and then actually they have endorsement. Because like right now in Florida, if you are trained, that you will be waived to get a test, so that you should be able to get a endorsement without going through the test. So what this shows is about 50% of rider out there, they never received the formal training. That's like, this is like a 50%, and this is about 50%. So this is like basically saying that Florida becomes first state to adopt mandatory training, and then we require everybody to get trained. And based on the survey, you will show you that the yellow shows the proportion of the people who are get endorsed without training, and still we have a little bit of yellow portion in here just because that Florida recognized somebody actually got a motorcycle license from the other state and moved to Florida. They don't have to go through the training. So we still have this small portion of people who are obtaining motorcycle endorsement without training. However, in majority, we see that like a very positive trend that over the years that you will see the people are trained with people are endorsed with the trainings, which is a good thing. And then also that the training, the 2008 mandatory training law contribute to reduce significantly in terms of unendorsed riders. So now the state used to be over 35% in terms of endorsement, motorcycle endorsement. Now we are somewhere between 27 to 28%. And also the public attitude toward this mandatory training is pretty positive. That you can see there for the Universal Hamaro, there are mixed response versus like mandatory training. No, if you add up these two, there's almost like a 96% of like close to 95.4% of people who supported this training law. So we asked people who are actually getting trained, and it was interesting to note that here you will see I've been writing, and this is like a same proportion of the people we see in the crash data for the unendorsed riders. So about 27% people who are coming to the call, they're coming just because they think they need to have endorsement, but they did ride prior to the course on street, I guess. And also we asked those people about their riding experience. That it's interesting to note that about only about like 1/3 of people who are coming to the BRC course, They say, I never ridden a motorcycle prior to the course. So which means, and then there are some people actually saying they're pretty experienced with the motorcycle, so that they've been operating a motorcycle on the street maybe, or they've been riding a motorcycle with their buddies maybe. But at the end, we asked people that would you recommend this motorcycle course to the people? And then you can see that 86% of people say, yes, I would recommend these people to the experienced riders. So this is a pretty positive outcome. And then people who actually recognize them, state them, they are very experienced riders. But there were 57 people who participated in the survey that they said they are experienced riders. But they even also agree, like 77% of those people say, yeah, this is a course can be beneficial to someone who are experienced on riding. And then also we ask people, would you consider taking the experienced rider course? So it means like there are different courses people can take after endorsement. And interestingly, I asked this question by the 4 different groups. And so these 4 groups, and see like 77%, 82, 86, and 87, pretty much like everybody agree, a good portion of the each group agree to, not agree, like they said, oh yeah, they will consider the course, like they will consider to take the experienced rider course. The problem is, after a few years of riding, so this is all the data that when you just got out of the school, it's like you just the first time got trained and got endorsed. And after the few years of the riding, what happened to like every person is like, okay, now only the 60% of people say, oh, I would consider attending one of these courses in the next 12 months. And about 32% say no. And the people will start to say, oh, it's too expensive, take the course, I don't have time, I don't feel like I would run much, I'm unsure the type of course that are offered. So there's a discrepancy that people actually who took the course, they like the course, but people who didn't take the course and prior to taking a course, they feel like it's a waste of time or it's a waste of money. So we were trying to see in the particular project that we worked on, so what can motivate the people to take more courses? Like this 14% people, what happened to them? Why they are taking courses over and over? So we found there are 4 different categories. The first one is like people who are in the military, like people in the riding a motorcycle is one of the major hobby for the army, the soldiers or military people. And military required recertification every so many years. So it's to be you as a GI that you have to take the course, or you have to be retrained every so many years. So you are doing it just because it's required. And people who are riding a sports bike, most of the time they are taking a course additional to the endorsement course, the BRC. They are taking a course like riding like a pro. So they want to improve their skills. They want to know how much they can lean their bike to the side when they negotiate the curve. So they want to harness their skills. They become a motivation for them to take another course. And then third is a built-in culture of the motorcycle club. The motorcycle club, like this is the Goldwing Road Rider Association, and this particular club has a strong culture on safety. So like many people, because we asked people like when they said they took another course after endorsement, they would say, we asked them, so what kind of course they took it? What kind of course did you take it? And then we found that many people in the Goldwing group, and they took the course with their club. So what I'm saying is, it will be like that's like one of the big categories. Somebody who are taking another course after the endorsement is it has to be in a built-in culture of the club. And number 4 is a new motorcycles. That we found a trend that when people take a new course, and when people when people like to take a when people get a new motorcycle, they like to learn about their new motorcycle. So like people are moving into the trike and I see the big trend that people are taking course. So what I'm saying is these four actually represent opportunity for us, so that this can be used to encourage motorcycle training. And in terms of the conclusion of today's presentation, I kind of touched briefly about the train, and I also talked about the training stuff. It was a little bit of scattered approach in terms of talking different aspects of motorcycle safety and the crash trend. But since I've been involved with this for extended time, that oftentimes people are asking me that, so give me one or two solutions that we should take, or we can try. But I'll basically my answer to that question is there 10,000 different solutions, when 10,000 solutions are all needed. So there's no silver bullet. Everything, every different component of your solution should be counted. And the PP use has to be promoted, and then people need to understand this is the at least thing they can do to become a safer rider. And then they need to understand the power of defensive riding, and drivers need to be educated too. They need to be drive they need to learn how to drive defensively. One time that I had the discussion with my friend here and say, car has to be improved, and there's more opportunity for education. There's a better information out there. However, that why the people are not driving better. If you look at the many people in this session, they may agree the way the people are driving in Florida is not something that we can be proud of. So we need to understand that how we can use this message to people, and there are different components of safety education and safety outreach, like motivation and culture and habit. And also we need to understand what's the benefit and what's the price they need to pay to be a safer motorcycle rider and safer drivers. And the picture that I put in here is a ski that I'm a big downer skier, but since I'm in Florida, I cannot go skiing every year. So I go skiing maybe every other year or every 3 years. But when I go to ski, sometimes I look at the course there. I look at the course that offered by the resort and see, but I never, even though I'm in the safety domain as a researcher, that I never saw attracted by the message somebody saying, okay, if you take this course, you'll be a safer rider. So most of the time, the course that I look at it is as I said, when I get a new ski, when I get a new, or when I want to improve my skill for more edging and drifting. So what I'm saying is that we need to think abroad. We need to look at the different approaches. We need to understand how we can actually let people to understand this is an important issue toward the zero deaths, and we need to take different angles that how we can approach and how we can improve. And that, I think, will conclude my presentation. And before I finish my presentation, let me just say one thing that most people in this live meeting, I think they already recognize this one, that we are hosting the motorcycle ride. It's called the Ride 457. That is a ride that trying to assemble the 457 people ride together as a visual representation of the 457 motorcycle fatality in 2012. So if you know anybody who will be in Daytona tomorrow morning, and just pass this information out, you can go to the www.ridesmartflorida.com 457 to look at the more details. And everybody will receive free long sleeve t-shirts. And also at the end of the ride, there will be a raffle to receive a jacket and more fun items. So this will conclude my presentation. And if you have any question, I'll be happy to entertain.
Great. Thank you very much, Chan Young. So everyone, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and submit those now. We do have a couple that have been submitted. The first one is, do you think the declines in 2009 and 2010 are based on recession? Less driving overall might decrease fatalities.
I think I mentioned in the presentation a little bit, that's partially true, that there are other states also reduced the number of motorcycle crashes in the same time. But I would say that's partially true just because Florida was able to reduce the motorcycle crash and fatalities 4 years in a row, and there's no evidence that we have those reduced the BMT for the 4 years. So my answer is yes, partially that can be true, but that cannot explain everything.
Okay. Next question that has come in is it true that more baby boomers are riding a motorcycle? And if so, are they affecting motorcycle fatalities?
Yes, that's a good question. The motorcycle is one of the there was one article that riding a motorcycle becomes the #1 hobby for retired baby boomers. So we'll see the trend of more and more, I don't want to say seniors, but more and more aged riders. So, but the interesting part is that those people they are also being called as a returned riders, which means they haven't ride for a while. So they got a motorcycle endorsement in maybe 1970 or 1980, and they were busy with their kids, and so they didn't ride it. They stopped riding for a while. When they start riding, which means they start riding for more than 10 years. Now they come back and they start to ride a motorcycle because they figured out this is the one hobby that they like to do. So now their kids are out of the house, they have more time, they have more money to offer the better, bigger bike. So yes, we see the increase of those people over 65 and 55. And they also get refractive. Used to be in terms of traffic fatality, they're only 3% of entire age group. Now they are in the 7% in the motorcycle crash. However, those people are not involved in the fatal crashes. So if I looking at the fatal crashes, is still a very small portion that people who are over 65 is under than 1% of entire crash. So yes, there is a slow and there's a slow but clear trend of increasing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are taking a significant portion at this moment.
Okay, and then one last question here. You mentioned that there's a higher proportion of young motorcyclists in fatal crashes. Can you explain the reason?
Yeah, because young motorcyclists involved in a more, you see they're riding sports biker. So it's, as I said, the sports bike, the interesting is the motorcycle type is associated with age too. So when younger people, because sports bikers tend to go faster, and when you speed, then you have more chance to get involved. So you have less time to react to the surroundings. So which will lead you to get into the more trouble. So in the sense that the younger people that ride a sports bike and sports bike tend to go faster, or maybe younger people want to go faster. So as a consequence, they will get involved in they will have a higher odds of getting crashes.
All right, sounds good. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, so I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you to Dr. Chen-Young Lee for the awesome presentation on motorcycles. And if you would, before you leave, please take a moment to fill out our survey. Don't forget, we'll be back in 2 weeks with our next webinar, which will be on March 20th. Thank you again.